This is Cutting Through the Matrix on January the 9th, 2009. For the newcomers, look into cuttingthroughthematrix.com, and I'll take you on a real tour of history, showing you that the future is always planned, as it was planned in the past as well. Where we are today was planned, and I try to fill in as much of the details, as many of the details as I have come to understand, that brings this big new world order, this big utopia, as they call it at the top, being brought into view, how it all works together. And it truly is staggering in its proportions, because it encompasses your whole culture, everything that you think you know, everything even that you like in your culture, what you've come to like, and what's been pushed and what you've adopted. I try to show you that we are living in what I call the matrix, a planned society that's not finished with the plan. There's a lot more plan to go through, and we're living through the last period of part of it, of part of the plan. Then they go on to the next plan. Man is the material, the building block for what they can build and take into the future. We are the base material, as they say. And that's what all the hoopla about genetics and transhumanism is truly all about. We are the base material. And the masters plan to put us on the potter's wheel and create new types to serve them better. And they won't need terribly many of them, apparently, but 500 million or so. Also look into Alan Watts' Sentinel.eu, where you can find transcripts of these talks I've given. You can download them, print them up, and pass them around to your friends, and they're written in the various languages of Europe. On our show today, I was mentioning that what is staggering is the organization of all of this system worldwide. They call it interdependence, and that covers a variety of things. It means that all governments are now completely intermeshed together. All economies are intermeshed together. The cultures themselves are intermeshed. They take on an American-type culture that's promoted mainly to the young, because they always bypass the elderly. They're contaminated according to their philosophies. So you go for the young, and Hollywood and much music and so on has provided the culture that most of the youth across the planet have adopted. They had world meetings about this back in the 1960s to see who would be given this particular task. And the Royal Institute of International Affairs and CFR decided that the U.S. was best suited for the purpose. Now we're going through the big jump of economics, where we're supposed to be trained into serving a world state. And this article I'm about to read is really the lead-up to this. They're not using the term service in this article, but it's not all the other big books that is written by the participants in this particular meeting that took place, I think, in France. Back with more after this break. Matrix. And continuing with the story I'm about to read here, it's about the economic system and how we're changing it into a new system, a system where government is also involved with the big banks. But it really means that the government will be involved with you directly into your bank account, because gradually you'll see that money itself is used as a weapon. Everything that's out there can be used as a weapon. And those that have planned this great utopia of theirs will use all means at their disposal. And nothing is more powerful than the money system. We all live on it. We've been given it as no option, in fact. And we're all dependent upon it. Therefore, when they change it, we go along like sheep because we think we have no other option. The whole world runs on this money. And this is from Emma Van Doore, AP business writer, Thursday, January the 8th. And it says, Paris, the leaders of France and Germany appear to put disagreements over economic policy behind them Thursday, calling on the US to join global efforts to address the financial crisis. French President Nicolas Sarkozy leading a two-day conference with former British Prime Minister Tony Blair. Now, why is he there? Why is a former British Prime Minister there? And the reason is he belongs to the parallel government that Margaret Thatcher talked about. All ex-prime ministers and presidents belong to the parallel government that gets the job done. They're not accountable to the public anymore, and they can really get ahead with the agenda behind the scenes. But it says, with Tony Blair on the future of capitalism, said the crisis has shown that no country can go it alone on economic policy. In the 21st century, there is no longer a single nation who can say what we should do or what we should think, he said. The German. Now, these are all pre-planned little quotes, and even this is a handout to all the big newspapers. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said the system cannot continue as it is and called for better regulated financial markets. Now, what do you mean by better regulated financial markets? They've been regulating the financial markets for years. It's never been an honest thing whatsoever. Many governments have dumped lots of money into it when their own big corporations start going down in the stocks. That was traditional. The reason they pulled the plug on it was because it was planned that way. Because for years the U.S. dumped millions of dollars frequently into the stock market whenever the major American markets were going down. So they've always been involved in it. This is the next part of the system I'm talking about they're going into. European leaders will meet in Berlin before the G20 summit in London to decide a common approach as global leaders gear up for a second meeting on the global financial crisis, Sarkozy said. So, global leaders. See, you don't have national leaders anymore. You have global leaders gear up for a second meeting on the global financial crisis, Sarkozy said. Measures will be taken at the G20 meeting in London on April the 2nd, Sarkozy promised, saying we cannot accept the status quo. He called for closer cooperation on economic policy. Now, closer cooperation is one of the terms they use when they were integrating Europe. Closer ties is another one you'll see in the newspapers. That means they're integrating the system even further. So they're totally integrating the economic policy for the world. He says, we should discuss how each of us is managing his currency and his interest rates. The leaders of France and Germany have differed in the past over how much government support Europe's economy needs. Merkel deplored huge debts that governments are accumulating to spend their way out of the present crisis, but she said she recognized for the moment there is no other possibility. Leaders should look beyond financial markets, she said, singling out the American budget deficit and China's current account surplus or trade balance as problems upsetting the global economy. A Congressional Budget Office report estimates that the U.S. federal budget deficit will hit an unparalleled $1.2 trillion for the 2009 budget year. It'll be more than that. And that is before President-elect Barack Obama's sweeping stimulus package is calculated. You're going to have bailout 2. We're going to get a series of these dramas, bailout 1, 2, 3, etc., as they go along. European governments have agreed to be flexible about budget rules that limit deficits to 3% of gross domestic product as recession bites. Merkel is planning an extra stimulus of up to euro 50 billion euro, $70 billion. And Sarkozy said Thursday that he's considering additional measures. What they're doing, you see, when they have the countries amalgamated, the European Union, is that it doesn't matter what country is going down, all the other countries, all the taxpayers in other countries have got to bail them out. And it's going to be the same with America and Canada and Mexico and whoever else they bring in, Chile probably. French Finance Minister Christine Lagarde said Thursday that Paris is planning to inject a second tranche of euro 10.5 billion into some of the nation's largest banks in an effort to spur lending. Are we bribing the banks to spur lending? Would it bribe them now to spur lending? What a colony. Merkel said the International Monetary Fund has not managed to regulate global capitalism, and she called for the creation of an economy body an economy body, I guess you mean economic body, at the United Nations. It's funny how the United Nations is always going to be our savior, isn't it?